We had a lot of toasty days this summer, and even though we're getting into meteorological fall, we can still get some warm afternoons, but there tends to be a better chance of relief as we go later into the season. I'm explaining why a summer heat wave can feel so much worse than a fall heat wave in this week's Heather's Weather Wise. More than 1/3 of days this past summer had a high of at least 85 degrees. But what can really drag a heat wave on isn't the afternoon heat, it's the nighttime temperatures too, especially if there's no relief. Let's look at this past July, which now boasts Buffalo's longest heat wave in history. The high temperature that month hit at least 85 degrees 18 different times. Temperatures stayed in the 70s, balmy territory to put it, well, mildly, for nearly half of the nights in July. Now let's compare to a September heat wave by rewinding back to September 2018. 8 days reached a high of at least 85. Only 2 nights stayed in the 70s. All right, give me a second to do some math. So that's about 75% of those hot days that also had uncomfortably hot nights this past July, but only 25% of those hot days in that particular September had an uncomfortably warm night too. Now, I know that's a relatively small sample size and uncomfortable is all relative, but you get the idea. Fall heat waves aren't usually as intense as summer ones. I'm pretty sure 13-year-old Heather would give a big old duh to something like that, but let me explain why before you give me some attitude. The first reason may just seem like common sense. The length of time between sunrise and sunset is much longer in July compared to September by about 2.5 hours. So the longer September nights give more time for Earth's surface to cool down. But even a long night can stay uncomfortably warm in the right conditions. Now, stop me if you've heard this a million times already, but a big factor is the humidity. All right, yeah, I've said it 1,000,001 times now. Check this out. The lower atmosphere is made up of billions of molecules. You're just looking at a few here, but you get the picture. When the air feels humid, that's because there are more water molecules present than on a day that feels drier and more comfortable. A water molecule can hold on to heat longer than another air molecule can. So if it's more humid, there's more water vapor and there's more heat trapping. That's a quick way to explain why a humid night not only feels warmer, it actually is warmer than a dry night most times. And as the atmosphere cools later on into the fall season, the atmosphere just can't hold quite as much moisture, so it can't feel quite as humid. So really, I guess you could say, what came first, the heat or the humidity? Now that is a really complicated question for another time. So that's going to do it for this week's Heather's Weather Wise. I'll see you next week with a new topic, but until then, remember, it's good to be a geek.